The concept of physician burnout is something I want to just follow up with what Gaston was saying. And it's really a function of the relationship between the doctor and the patient. If the doctor is able to really care for the patient, there's no burnout. If there's administrative bureaucracies which get in the way of that, there's burnout. Because I believe, as Robert said, these people do enter medical school hoping and expecting to be helpful to people. And when they spend more time dealing with bureaucracies than with patients, that's the burnout scenario. And there's some very important solutions to that. Nope.
I got 45 minutes before I have to leave.
All right.
So you have to go fire it up.
All right. How do you suppose that works?
Should just kick into gear. Here, let me try this again. And it should be magically. Find it. Searching. There we go.
All right.
And then start right from the beginning or something.
Where do you go?
Slideshow.
Right here.
Slideshow. There you go.
All right. Thank you for your attention, Robert. Thank you for your technology. My name is Brad Weeks. And Robert, how would I get rid of the bottom right here? Oh, I guess it's gone. Thank you. I'm a medical doctor, and my license was taken away about 3 years ago. We're going to go into some of those details because it's typical of what happens to innovative doctors. And I think the solution, as Gaston says, is if the patients understand that they have the opportunity to save their doctors if they're proactive. That'll be an important lesson here. I'm going to talk about sensible remedies because sensible in my book is safe, effective, and cost-effective. You should have the right to try something which is safe, effective, and cost-effective. I'm going to demonstrate what I think is the optimal patient-doctor relationship. Notice the juxtaposition of the words. That might be the first time you've heard it as not the doctor-patient relationship. And also I'm going to talk about empowerment because that's really what education should be about, ducere, to lead or teach. And I'm going to encourage political action. I'm going to try to keep you awake. I believe in dessert first. So I'm going to share my father at age 62, white hair, active, no medications, busy, wonderful. At 92, black hair coming in. Because he is eating whole crushed seeds, a safe, effective, and cost-effective food, which all of us throw away. So we're going to explore that. So part one is to share scientific validation regarding sensible treatments. Now, Paracelsus, a great doctor in the 1400s, said there's no incurable illnesses, they're just incurable people. A lot of what I'm going to do right now for the sake of time is to go faster than maybe is comfortable, but this will be on YouTube. This will be available to review. If people want me to send the PowerPoint, I'm happy to do that. But here's, for example, a sensible remedy must be safe, effective, and cost-effective. As regards cancer, prevention, we could speak for hours about that. A healthy diet, clean water in particular, love-filled and purpose-driven lifestyle. Eating the crushed, organic, non-GMO, anti-inflammatory seeds, rich in branched-chain amino acids. I like a product called Dr. Detox we can talk about, OxyAssist, and again, feeling and expressing appreciation and gratitude. So that's what we do with cancer. Now, we do the same thing with heart disease, and we do the same thing with diabetes, and we do the same thing with autism, and obesity, premenstrual syndrome, you name it. The concept is every doctor will have things which he or she feels are going to be helpful. And there need to be some scientific discussions about it. It shouldn't be, I have the white coat, trust me. It should be, let's do a co-learning process. Now, what's interesting is that results trump consensus. And I say this because your medical care is delivered to you by consensus and committee processes, not by science. What I mean by that is the reason the standard of care exists is because a bunch of people got together and said that should be best for you. Science does not proceed that way. Science is not a majority rule process. It's not even a let's get together and have fun process. It's disruptive. The earth is all of a sudden round. For a long time it was flat. So it's not about committees. And you shouldn't have to be subjected to medical care delivered by a committee. If you have a doctor who is a little bit smarter, a little bit courageous, is able to give you tomorrow's medicine today, you should be able to avail yourself of that if you, as a free citizen, consider the pros and cons and consent. So the 21st century healthcare revolution involves being sensible, treating inflammation. These are general concepts. Detoxifying the environment, heavy metals, glyphosates, and so forth. Electrical pollution, pesticides, radiation. We need to oxygenate the tissues. We need to feed your genes right. If someone comes in with a genetic disease, that's only a problem if you can't do the work around nutritionally and feed the genes right. If you have a genetic deficiency on how to make vitamin D, let's give you some additional vitamin D. It can be that simple. Cancer is not a genetic disease. I hope everyone understands that. Over 90% of cancer is caused by epigenetic factors, things which affect the genes from outside, diet, nutrition, exercise. Over 90% of the funding for cancer is on genes. Makes no sense. It's your money, your taxpayers' money. It's going for the wrong thing. So inflammation is what we pay attention to in my teaching of helping what are now I call clients, since I'm no longer practicing. I'm simply an educator and an advocate. Whether it's asthma or back pain or cancer or diabetes, A to Z, it's all about inflammation. Now, who's leading this revolution away from standard of care? It's the mothers. The doctors are saying, wait for me, I'm your doctor. But it's typically the mothers. I'm going to talk about seed nutrition. The concept is, what's a seed? Well, it's the most nutrient-dense food on earth, quite simply. I'm a beekeeper as well. I used to say that about pollen. Pollen can't hold a candle to your avocado pit, to your grape seed, to the lemon seeds you threw away today, to your grapefruit seeds. The seeds are 20 times more nutrient-dense than the rest of the plant. And the husk is very important. Don't settle for extracted seed oils, because you lose the husk. Now, here's an MRI of the husk of a seed. I think it's beautiful. Look at those antennae. Here's a seed which was discovered in 1963 in Israel, 2,000 years old. It sprouted. We all know how vulnerable oils are, how they become rancid very quickly. What protected that oil in that seed for 2,000 years? The husk. Why would you drink extracted seed oil and not be able to get the husk? Now, 32,000 years, according to the analysis of these seeds, they were buried under the permafrost in Siberia. This is a 32,000-year-old seed which sprouted. That's the world record at this point. This is a long slide by Rudolf Steiner, one of my great inspirations, and he talks about how the entire universe it stamps itself upon the seed. Seeds are really the most mysterious and miraculous thing that we engage with every day. In every seed formation, the earthly process of organization is carried to the very end, to the point of chaos. Time and again, the chaos of the seed, the new organism, is built up again out of the whole universe. Here in this seed, we have the stamp or impress of the whole cosmos, and we throw it away. Now, here's something very interesting. Physicists talk about wave compression. Seeds grow in the site of wave compression, which is the highest frequency energy of the plant. Homeopaths will appreciate this. We see it when we look at the plant, what's happening in these seeds. Now, the quantum physicists agree that the seed, when you look at the membranes which laminate the seed, husk, and so forth, they're composed of sequentially smaller pores in the membranes. That means that light forces and energy accelerate into the center of the seed. The multi-layer laminate of seed membranes acts like a defibrillator, according to the size effect, otherwise understood by energy researchers as the principle whereby energy moves to the smallest size while simultaneously creating higher and higher frequencies of matter. This is the seed. It's the homeopathically potentized remedy which allows the plant to reproduce. So these are mysterious topics. Farmers understand this intuitively. This is a statue of Samuel Hahnemann, the father of homeopathy. This is in Washington, D.C. I don't like going to D.C. for obvious reasons. My friend Jonathan Wright calls it Washington DNC, where they do that operation on the taxpayers every year. But here's my daughter Sarah, and I are at the foot of Hahnemann's statue, the only statue of a medical doctor in Washington, D.C., homeopath. Now, what's wrong with this picture? Well, seedless grapes, seedless watermelon. Why do we not eat the seeds? They're bitter. Try eating a papaya seed. Very bitter. Wonderful medicine for digestive issues. Also, the husks are indigestible. Now, it is not rocket science to solve that problem. You grind the seed down and you add a natural sweetener. Now you can eat at the VIP lounge of nature. Now you get 20-fold more nutrients. Look at this anemic watermelon on one side, okay? Most of the citrulline is found in the rind. Who eats watermelon rind? If you have a Vitamix, throw in the rind. Add a little more honey if it's bitter. Raw organic honey. The seeds are the most nourishing of the watermelon, of course, full of oleic acid and unsaturated fatty acids. A pineapple, who eats the skin or the core? That's where the bromelain is, 40% more. Who eats the pineapple skin? It's edible. You got to add some sweetener. Now, the peel of an orange has twice as much vitamin C as the flesh. Why aren't we eating orange skin? Well, because it's been pesticided, of course. If it's organic, throw the whole thing in the Vitamix with a little extra honey. Now, here's Shakespeare. I love this. Mickle is the powerful grace that lies in herbs and plants and stones and their true qualities. For naught so vile on the earth doth live, but to the earth some special good doth give. For naught so good but strained from that fair use revolts from true birth, stumbling on abuse. Virtue itself turns to vice being misapplied, and vice sometimes by action dignified. Within the infant rind of this small flower, poison hath residence, and medicine power. The infant rind is the seed. Okay? Medicine and power. So this is what healthy food looks like. We know that. I'm preaching to the choir. You know, that bread, there's no flour there. It's all just ground up, seeds and so forth. We also know about seeds in dietary, in drinks. These are seed drinks. Coffee is the most pesticided food in our diet. Get organic coffee. Don't get pesticided coffee. Lao Tzu, to see things in the seed is genius. How do we cure aging? Aging is basically inflammation. Did you know that? Did you know that the term now is inflammaging? You know, when I was in medical school, the guy with the sore wrist had inflammation. This person didn't. We thought it was pain or something. Aging is inflammation. Everything is inflammation. Sensible anti-aging is to eat the seed. I'll go into some detail on that. The richest part of the seed, where the DNA and the RNA is the genetic spare parts. When you're eating whole crushed organic seeds, you are supplementing your DNA and RNA. That's the anti-aging food. That's the sensible approach. You can go to an anti-aging clinic, you can buy all sorts of stuff, or you can eat organic, whole crushed seeds. And just the way you get magnesium from green leafy vegetables, you'll get DNA and RNA spare parts to buff up your own DNA if you eat the seeds. The most concentrated aspects of the DNA and RNA are in the seed. You can get it from a piece of meat, you can get it from an apple, but if you throw away the seed, you miss it. So here's a chief complaint. Now, I put in the chief complaint. I never use that term anymore. I use the term chief concern. What would be your chief concern? How arrogant and how pathetic would the doctors, somebody's coming to them for help, and we call them a complainer. You know, Danny, what's your chief complaint? I mean, that's in the literature. Chief complaint. Oh, I hate it. But this guy's chief complaint was, he says, my wife thinks my hair is dirty. This is a 79-year-old gentleman, had white hair for 20 years. Started eating the seeds. It's coming in blonde. His wife doesn't like it. He says, I don't care if you don't like it. I haven't had blonde hair for 20 years. All right? Again, my father, 62, no complaints, no meds, very busy, active. Here he is at 92, black hair coming in, eating the seeds. Black hair coming in. So, Mom, how are you doing? I don't know if you can see, but in the front here, some little black hair coming up. So I thought I'd look under the hood. There's more circulation in the back of the head, right? This is why monks would get bald up top, but retain their hair here. So I looked in the back where the most circulation is. Black hair under the white. Okay? Getting back to inflammation, all chronic illnesses, whatever causes them, are driven by inflammation. Autistic children, if you take away the inflammation, they do much better. They start looking the mom in the eye. Cancer, driven by inflammation. The primary tumor never kills anybody unless it grows and obstructs a vital organ. It's the metastatic process that kills. Metastatic process is inflammation. So whether it's heart disease or whether it's cancer, schizophrenia, did you know that all mental illnesses are driven by inflammation? PTSD, insomnia, anxiety, they're all inflammatory processes. This is just a quick little information. This was published a month or so ago. I'm sorry, no, this is published in 2011. They found that Singulair, an asthma drug, helped nerve cells regenerate. They're looking at Singulair, an asthma drug, to help with neurological degeneration like Alzheimer's. Well, what's Singulair? It's an anti-inflammatory. Eat the seeds. Inflammation underlies not just aging, but all chronic illnesses. Here's May 2015, recent. All psychiatric neurocognitive illnesses are worsened by inflammation. Has your psychiatrist told your son, instead of an SSRI drug, they should maybe take anti-inflammatories? Psychiatric Times, 2014. Taking an anti-inflammatory agent is like using windshield wipers while driving in a rainstorm. That's my summary of this article, but they basically say if you have schizophrenia, take anti-inflammatories. What's the problem with that? Why haven't you heard about that? They're cheap. Title of this article, Depression is an Inflammatory Disease. Where does the inflammation come from? Okay. They also say bipolar, schizophrenia, autism, PTSD, inflammatory. What's the world's best anti-inflammatory? A good, clean glass of water. Right? If you're dehydrated, you're inflamed. What could be more sensible than telling the government to clean up our water? Revolution in cancer care. We talk about corrective cancer care. Although the medical board took my license away because of I was using human growth hormone, they were really concerned with our success in helping people with cancer. Corrective cancer care. You can look at that at weeksclinic.com. And I talked about the Cordelia effect. This is Lear's third daughter. Reagan and Goneril told Lear everything he wanted to know, and he divided the kingdom in thirds. And Cordelia said, when Lear said, "How much do you love me?" She said, "I love you according to what a daughter would love, no more, no less." And he got infuriated. He said, "Nothing will come of nothing. Speak again if you want your fair third." So she would not, she's in Gaston's third that speaks the truth. So she got banned. And it's my favorite of Shakespeare's plays is King Lear, Cordelia. So the concept is don't kill the messenger. Cancer is nothing but a messenger. Cancer is saying something's wrong. Cancer is the symptom. Cancer is not the disease. So the Cordelia effect, we take down the cancer welcome sign. If you're doing 10 things of diet soda a day, I mean, you're inviting cancer and so forth. Enhance the immune system. Reduce or kill the cancer tumor cells, but we need to re-educate the cancer stem cells. The metaphor is that if you're in a boat which is sinking, you could bail and bail and bail, or you could plug the hole. Why not plug the hole? Conventional cancer care today just bails. In fact, you pay them a lot to bail for you. Here is probably the smartest and most influential man in cancer care today, Max Wicha. Everyone should study this man. He's at the University of Michigan. He's one of the pioneers on cancer stem cells. About a week ago, he told me, I'm on the phone with him, he said, in my lifetime, and he's not a spring chicken, in my lifetime, oncologists will no longer give chemo and radiation. He's championing going after the cancer stem cell. He said, on top here, he's on record. This is not an alternative doctor, right? This is the august emeritus professor and so forth. He said, chemotherapy and radiation will make your cancer worse. And he said the reason is when we kill cancer tumor cells, there's tumor cells and there's cancer stem cells. When we kill cancer tumor cells, the cancer stem cells become more numerous and more virulent. The cancer stem cells are the ringleaders. The cancer tumor cells are the bystanders that just kind of got caught up in the fray. Now, just yesterday, February 5th, what do you think Max Witcha, this man saying chemo and radiation make your cancer worse, he just got $6.5 million yesterday because he is in the forefront. There's a if your oncologist is giving you chemo and radiation, you need to be paying attention to what I'm saying today. The money is now going to the cancer stem cell work. The top 3 oncologists who do research in cancer are endorsing cancer stem cell work. Why is that? Well, a tumor, less than 1% of a tumor, if I had a tumor the size of a grapefruit here, again, that's the symptom, that's not the problem. That tumor, less than 1% of that is cancer stem cells. The tumor is never the problem. Now, less than 1% of a tumor, which is to say only the cancer stem cells, can metastasize. You need to understand that because if your doctor does a circulating tumor cell study for $800, which insurance typically won't cover, they're not looking at cancer stem cells. They're looking at the tumor cells, which might be circulating, but they cannot set up a new cancer. They cannot metastasize. Only the cancer stem cell can. So here are references for that. I won't read that. Now, cancer stem cells resist chemotherapy. And they also resist radiation therapy. These are references. This is Max Dean at Stanford University on the cancer stem cell work. What happens when you give chemotherapy? It increases cancer stem cell proliferation and increases cancer stem cell number and virulence. Chemotherapy and radiation will make your cancer worse. The Cordelia effect. Standard of care is to kill the messenger, cut, burn, poison. Corrective cancer care, remedy the cancer stem cells. Redifferentiate. Teach the cancer stem cells. And the metaphor is, are there any teachers in the room? If you had an ADHD kid, making trouble in the back row, would you take him out back and shoot him? No. You'd take him out back and try to help him. A cancer cell a cancer should be understood as cellular ADHD. These are not bad cells. These are misguided, confused cells. They need to be redifferentiated. They need to be brought back into the fold. Now, if you're considering chemotherapy, please write down the name Ulrich Abel. Ulrich Abel is the man in the world today that knows more about chemotherapy than anybody else. He's studied with 350 medical centers around the world in researching chemotherapy. And he's found that the overall worldwide success of chemotherapy was appalling because there was simply no scientific evidence anywhere available that chemotherapy can extend in any appreciable way the lives of patients suffering from the most common organic cancers. Very interesting information. He describes chemotherapy as a scientific wasteland and states that at least 80% of chemotherapy administered throughout the world is worthless. Now, I'm going to agree with him, but that's not my words. This is an august professor in Germany. He says it's akin to the emperor's new clothes. Neither doctor nor patient is willing to give up chemotherapy, even though there is no scientific evidence that it works. Not meager scientific evidence, no scientific evidence that it works. Okay. Now, here's another Dr. Hardin Jones, PhD, New York Academy of Medical Sciences. My studies have proven conclusively that untreated cancer victims live up to 4 times longer than treated individuals. That's interesting information. So when I give lectures to doctors and oncologists, I often ask for a show of hands who knows someone who died from cancer, and the hands go up. And then I say that's a trick question, because if you're a scientist, there are other variables you need to consider. Did they take cytotoxic chemotherapy? Well, would that have had an effect? Logically, yes. It adds to the burden. It's lethal. What about radiation? And do you guys know what assault with a deadly weapon is? I have a white coat on. I say, Danny, you have 6 weeks to live. Those people should be disbarred. Because when you add, as Gaston says, the MD, one step down from God, waiting for the promotion, when you add the MD and the white coat, and they say to you, you have 6 weeks to live, you could easily demonstrate before and after white blood cell activity and show that the immune system just gets blunted. It is a lethal attack, and it should be not allowed. A Dartmouth graduate, I just lost his name and I didn't have internet here. He's the CEO of the Sloan Kettering Institute. He says the cancer treatment of the future will be primarily outpatient. It's because cancer never has been that lethal. Never was. The primary tumor never kills anybody. My grandmother had a breast tumor for 15 years. She died in her sleep of cardiac issues, and we didn't let it spread. It's just a burden. It's like a fungus on a tree. You knock off the fungus, you haven't cured the tree of fungus, right? You lop off the breast, you haven't cured the person of cancer tendency. So the concept is, don't be afraid of the big C. They're going to be considering it a chronic disease, much like diabetes. Take away the fear. Now, this is a very important article, Nature 2014. Basically, people here said, they were talking about bladder cancer, but it applies to all cancers. They said, previous studies have demonstrated that cancer stem cells are selectively enriched after chemotherapy. Oops. What about primum non nocere? What about first do no harm? And so they go on to say that when they give chemotherapy, it increases, it kills cancer cells, but it promotes neighboring cancer stem cells to repopulate. All right? Make it worse. And they said, but look at us, bravo, we found the answer, and it's Celebrex. What's Celebrex? It's an anti-inflammatory. And it also, in my opinion, should be off the market, like Vioxx, which was killing people. Most anti-inflammatories will destroy your kidney and your liver. The doctor says take aspirin until your ears ring. You know, that's autotoxicity, that's kidney disease. So they're saying in Nature, take an anti-inflammatory for cancer. Well, that's the take-home message. Chemotherapy makes cancer stem cells worse. Treat the cancer stem cells with anti-inflammatories. Anti-inflammatories also inhibit metastatic disease, and only the metastatic disease kills people for the most part. Most recommended over-the-counter anti-inflammatories will kill you also, kidney liver toxicity. So eat the seeds. Now, this is Max Wich's drug. It's an old cardiac drug, which he's bringing to market as a cancer drug. What is it? It's an anti-inflammatory. Okay? Oxygen is an anti-inflammatory. The seed products, Sol and Core and Form, we have some samples in the back, they're anti-inflammatories. Anti-inflammation is not new. This isn't new. This is what they were doing at Harvard back in 2010 for breast cancer. This is yesterday, okay? Welcome to, today's the 6th, this is February 5th. Cancer stem cell therapy, February 5th. How gut inflammation sparks colon cancer. Cancer stem cell activity. So anti-inflammatory foods will save the day, right? But the 4 questions for your oncologist when he says we're going to do chemo and radiation and we're going to cut the breast off and then we're going to give you 5 years of chemo. You say, why are you not recommending safe anti-inflammatory agents? This is if you feel like bullying your oncologist, but I recommend doing that. Why do you offer us chemotherapy patients candy, cake, and cookies after chemotherapy telling us that any calorie is a good calorie? What will you recommend to enhance my health while you try to kill my cancer tumor cells? And most importantly, how are you going to address my cancer stem cells? 99% of the oncologists will give you the deer in the headlights look because they're not keeping up on the literature. They don't know what a cancer stem cell is and they don't know how to treat it. Now, there's a lot of prior lectures you can look at on this. This has been something I've lectured about the last 10 years, the cancer stem cells. But it comes down to, in my recommendations, eat the seeds. We know that about Laetrile, a very powerful seed. Huge history of how beneficial Laetrile is, and it was taken off the market by your government. Right to try Laetrile, very important. Now, black cumin seed. I love this. This is Cancer Therapies 2008. They talk about the pharaohs would have, in the tombs of the pharaohs, they found this black cumin seed. One of my friends likes to say, the black cumin seed is the one thing no self-respecting pharaoh would be caught dead without. Because they knew the healing properties of this one seed, black cumin seed. It stimulates p53. That means it stimulates the cancer suppressor gene. black cumin seed, organic. It also, now this is fun for the oncologists in the audience, it stimulates P73, P10, STAT3, PAR1. It's anti-inflammatory, and it kills cancer cells, and it kills or redirects cancer stem cells. If this were a patentable product and I had discovered it, you would all be invited to my villa in every continent in the world. But you can't patent a natural product. And so the FDA is not going to like the information that you're hearing today. Now, can you have your cake and eat it too? Watch this. Yes, if the cake is made from seed flour. Thymoquinone is the main ingredient in black cumin seed. And if you take it with conventional chemotherapeutic drugs, you get greater therapeutic effect of the chemo drug and less toxicity. Doctor, can I take black cumin seed while you give me chemo? No, take nothing, just take my chemo. What, doctor, what if the product I'm taking will make your chemo drug work more effectively and spare me side effects? No, don't take anything. All right, also, when you take thymoquinone with cancer drugs, this is another article, it led to improvements in the therapeutic index and prevents non-tumor tissues from sustaining chemotherapy-induced damage. Non-tumor tissues, that's you. That's the rest of you. You take this product, you're spared the side effects. Nigella sativa, that's the black cumin seed. It also protects against radiation. So if you're going to go get radiation therapy, you need to be eating this seed. So the problem is people that do eat seeds, they don't eat the husk. The husk is much more powerful and much more magic than the seed. Let's talk about the husk. Here's an immature apple. Okay, the seed has not been coated with the husk. It's a white seed. Here's a mature apple. The farmers know that the most energy-intensive activity that the plant does is to laminate the seeds. When you think about the woodworker you know who sands it and shellacks it, and sands it and shellacks it, and sands it and shellacks it, that's how the plant makes husks. It's analogous to the lamination in the petroleum industry, where you keep adding CH3 and you go from gas down to an asphalt, down to a solid. Okay? Now, the most energy-intensive process, again, is making that husk. Here's a kind of a metaphor of the lamination process. And again, here's the whole seed. You want to eat the whole seed. Now, I stand firmly on the shifting sands of science. So if I'm back here next year or next week, I might tell you something different. I might say, what that stuff I told you last time, I've changed my mind. You want a doctor who will change his or her mind. Now, stop taking fish oil. Anybody's taking fish oil, stop taking it. Lots of references, but the concept by Brian Peskin, an electrical engineer, is that seed oils help the cell membranes function. Fish oil suffocates the cell membrane, inhibiting oxygen flow, inhibiting nutrient flow. We can have a whole other discussion on that, but Peskin, P-E-S-K-N, Google, P-E-O, the whole seeds are what you want. By the way, he claims that it takes 17 pounds of fish. By the way, fish oil is a waste product. The fish don't have glands of oil. 17 pounds of fish to make one capsule of pharmaceutical-grade fish oil. Andy Weil, a very famous holistic doctor, says, I'm not comfortable recommending that people eat saturated fat, coconut. I disagree. Saturated fat is very beneficial if it's organic. But he says it's clear to me that sugar, flour, and oxidized seed oils create the inflammatory effects that are killing us. Now, oxidized seed oil, if you buy a quart of any seed oil, walnut seed oil, hemp oil, anything, halfway through the month, throw it away, it's rancid. Oxygen gets in. The benefit of the product sold in the back is the fractions of the husk are floating around in the oil protecting it. You want the husks, not the extracted seed oils. I believe that God doesn't make mistakes. The chemists know that we supplement with DHA and EPA from fish oil because there's something called delta-6 desaturase, and it inhibits the parent oils from metabolizing down to DHA and EPA. There's like a bottleneck. Well, I think the bottleneck is there for a reason, because DHA and EPA are not what we should be eating, contrary to what your doctors are telling you. DHA and EPA from fish oil are long-chain fatty acids. They immediately become rancid at 98.6. They work in a fish in the Arctic water like antifreeze, but in your and my body, They oxidize, they become rancid, they become part of the problem. They suffocate cell membranes. This is what you have to do to get an extracted seed oil. Otherwise, you can buy the seeds, you can freeze them in a glass container, you can pull out your coffee grinder and blend them up, and you can put them on your food. So the take-home message is eat the whole crushed seed. Now, this looks delicious, right? Healthy, organic. But what happened? You threw out the best part. Now, Laura, my wife, an organic gardener and a fabulous nutrition-wise woman, she eats the cantaloupe seeds. How can you do that? But now I eat them. The avocado pit. Look at this pit. It's all meat. It's not like there's a walnut husk around it. It's begging to be eaten. It is bitter as all get out. But put the whole avocado in your Vitamix with enough honey, if necessary, and you've got a fabulous nutritional food. Now look at how quickly, 1 minute after cutting up the avocado pit, it's oxidizing. Eat it fresh. Here's the recipe. Nut milk, you can blend up your own nuts and so forth. Add the avocado, add the honey, and so forth. A delicious smoothie. Seed oils, unlike fish oil, penetrate the skin. The skin is 1,000-fold more omega-6 than omega-3. You can never do this with fish oil. Seed oils penetrate the skin. The brain, 100 times omega-6, that's seed oil, than omega-3. Do not give your parents fish oil thinking you're going to help their Alzheimer's. Give them seed oils. The brain is 100-fold more omega-6 than omega-3. I used to get sunburn all the time. Sunscreen is a horrible thing. We can talk about it another time. This is what I do. Before I go out in the sun, I put the extracted seed oils, the whole crushed seed oils on my face. Soaks in, wipe off the husks. You're good to go. I can go out in the sun and not get sunburned. My wife fell off of a 16-foot ladder, a orchard ladder. It was classic. It was right out of Eden. It was like one cherry too far. Temptation, you know. There was no snake involved, but it was like... And the whole ladder started to go, and she made the smart decision at 16 feet to step off rather than have the ladder crush her. So she crawled up to the house. We've since decided that we shouldn't climb on ladders when the other home is not home. And she immediately soaked on this sole, which there's samples in the back for you to try. She rubbed on our foot. It was 2 weeks before we figured out we better get an x-ray because the pain was gone almost instantaneously. Anti-inflammation. But every time she put weight on it, it hurt, so we figured there was a break. So, how do you get these seeds? This is always ideal, right from nature. You can't beat growing it, eating it. But this kid lives in Miami, and she doesn't have access to these whole organic foods. So she's drinking Sol out of the packet. So the best practice is to buy your seeds, bulk, organic, non-GMO, freeze them in glass. Every morning, take out a tablespoon of this or that seed, blend it up in a secondhand coffee grinder, and eat them. That's ideal. 1 in 100 will do that because convenience dictates compliance. So we have these packaged seeds, which are very beneficial. The anti-inflammation, the product Sol, which is in the back, 1 packet is 8 to 10 servings of organic fruit, 8 to 10 servings of organic vegetable, and 3 servings of organic seed oils. You give this to Billy, who's got attention deficit disorder, for breakfast. He'll say thank you. He might have already taken it because he likes it. These kids love this product. He's set for the day. ADHD, that's inflammatory. Okay? Core, a second product, is more detox. It's got the greens in it. Kale, chlorophyllin, aloe vera, spirulina, wheatgrass, dandelion, chlorella. Tastes terrible. How do you make dandelion and wheatgrass taste good, right? These are powerful liver detox agents. So you add some, in this case, some mint and some stevia, I think. But the seeds involved in this are the milk thistle seed. Everyone knows milk thistle for the liver. Nobody's taken milk thistle seed, 20 times more powerful. Cranberry seed, women, urinary tract infections, cranberry seed, and then the black cumin for the inflammation. The third product is ground up seeds, which are high in protein. This is a protein powder made from another seed called chocolate, cacao. But the seeds are the highest in branched chain amino acids, hemp seed, chia seed, cranberry pumpkin. So there's ways to get your vegetarian, non-GMO, organic, non-dairy, non-soy protein. Highest in branched chain amino acids, meaning the best ones for being absorbed and used as muscle right away. I have great faith in a seed, says Thoreau. Convince me you have a seed there, and I'm prepared to expect wonders. So this is the end of the part of my talk which has to do with sensible solutions. We could talk about a lot of things. I just wanted to drive home the message, eat the organic seed, the whole seed. Now, the second part of the talk is the optimal doctor-patient relationship. This is, again, part of what I consider the solution, and Gaston did a wonderful job of touching on this. The optimal relationship involves accountability. If there are consequences, you should be able to hold the doctor accountable. Responsibility, being responsive to you. Collaboration, co-learning. Mutual benefit. Doctor gets paid, you get value. Now, those days are gone. Whose doctor are you? This is from weeksclinic.com. We have always been a fee-for-service practice because only if the doctor is paid by the patient can the patient hold the doctor accountable. It's a huge problem because I wouldn't want to have to pay the doctor to do a $100,000 surgery. But for most of what happens between doctors and patients, it should be fee-for-service. That's the true revolution in healthcare. That's true healthcare reform. Doctor keeps you waiting 20 minutes, guess what? You get to say, what the heck's that about? Right? All right, exactly. Also as a fee-for-service doctor, we were able to give free care to patients who couldn't afford it. If you are being paid by insurance and you give free care, that's illegal. That's the burnout, Gaston. You know, you'd love to be able to give free care. If you're taking insurance, you can't. You can be reported to the state medical board for unfair competition against this guy over here, this doctor who doesn't give free care. Okay, so the way to get the most out of your doctor's visit is basically, there's a wonderful campaign on the radio now that says, asking questions is the answer. So if you heard this radio ad, just ask your doctor questions. Well, good luck with that, right? I mean, come on. You know, the concept is the current situation does not allow for a true give and take. It's really, I have 10 minutes, sit down, shut up, and I'll tell you what to do. Now, that's not working out because the doctors are not working for the patients. They're working for the people who pay them, but they're working on the patient. Very important distinction. Here's a narcolepsy boy after the swine flu vaccine. He gets 120,000 pounds. He's been damaged for life. But the concept is that whenever the physician is administering a vaccine, he's relieved of liability for adverse events. So there's no accountability. The physician is serving as the agent of the state. When did that happen? When in the Hippocratic Oath does it say, and I promise to allocate resources most efficiently for the state? My patients, if they need 10 MRIs, I'm going to make sure they get it. And the hospital says, well, you're overutilizing. I'm doing what's right for my patient. Your doctor has to work for you. Who does your doctor serve? You or the state? So a good friend of mine sent his son to see me years ago, and he was one of my best friends in high school. I said, I'm not going to charge you. He says, look, if you don't charge me, how can I complain? That was beautiful. That was true wisdom. I said, you're right. I'm going to charge you full. You see if you find anything to complain about. And he didn't. So this is a wonderful ad. Here's your doctor, right? Yeah, this is just classic. You know, he shows up with his white coat, but it's plastered with Merck and his Pepto-Bismol, you know, what you'd expect, Pfizer. How would you like it? But that's the truth. That's who is funding your doctor for the most part. Part 3, empowering patients through mutual sharing of health information. It has to be a co-learning process. So here's some books on vaccinations. You know, it's got to be, I'll see you next week. Here's your book report. I need a book report. Here's some homework. Like Gaston was saying, it's a learning process. Here's some of the great books on cancer. Now, part 4 is to encourage coordinated political action with principled allies. What's the term when Republicans and Democrats get together? Nonpartisan, right? I like this. Are you left-wing, right-wing, or are you knowing? Right? So I'm on the board of something called GAP. It's a very progressive, radical government accountability project. GAP is wonderful. They take care of whistleblowers. Ed Snowden, all these people. GAP is the main organization to try to keep government accountable. It shouldn't be a crime to report a crime, is what they say. That's Louis, who's the head of GAP, the founder. But I think the Goldwater Institute is quite conservative. And they're doing the same thing. They're trying to hold the government accountable. So we have to have principled allies. Here's my hero, Ron Paul. I think it's going to be a long time before we see another person like him. Bernie, highly principled. Like him or not, he is highly principled. He's been saying the same thing for 40 years. Ben and Jerry said if he weren't so principled, he'd be boring. Okay? They both want to audit the Fed. Who would have thought that they would be allies? So as we change healthcare, we have to work with people on all sides of the fence. Are you Republican, are you Democrat, or are you awake? So, protecting healthcare freedom, maintaining freedom of choice, the right to try. There are too many people counting calories and not enough people counting chemicals. Cancer treatment of the future is anti-inflammation. Of course, 1850 to 1937, cannabis was in more than 100 different medications. I don't have the patent because I couldn't get online, but there's a U.S. patent for marijuana for neurodegenerative illnesses. So on one hand, the government says you can't have it. On the other hand, they've patented its use for a number of illnesses. Now, you also have to have the right not to try something. Your body is your body. And I am astonished that everyone in California is asleep and allowing the mandatory vaccine law. This is terribly disconcerting to me. Here's Lorraine Day saying, before vaccinations, there was virtually no autism and no sudden infant death syndrome. The main cause is vaccinations, etc. If you're at all concerned about this, get on the internet. Ed Wakefield's work, there's some fabulous stuff to look at. Robert Kennedy Jr. is saying they get the shot. That night they have a fever of 103. They go to sleep. 3 months later, their brain is gone. This is a holocaust. All right. All right.
Sorry, babe.
Thank you.
You are a shark. You are so amazing.
All right. All right, everyone come up front. We're going to do this. You're going to see it from here.
You see, do they have a backup? Okay, I was thinking that they might have a backup for you, but
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, so here's don't be bashful. If you can't see, come up front. All right. So the concept here is we have Ted Koren, a very courageous chiropractor, saying if you think that he says you'd think there would be loads of studies showing that vaccinated kids are healthier than non-vaccinated kids, right? It's not the case. It's the vaccinated kids who are less healthy.
And who's saying that?
Ted Koren, K-O-R-E-N. Now, now I'm a Seattle boy, okay? I understand there's a football game tomorrow. I think Seattle should be in it. There's probably some shenanigans. I don't know why Seattle's not in it, but we're going to talk about the right to try poster boy. Okay, who is it? Peyton Manning.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's go through that. Human growth hormone is a fabulous substance. You all should be able to have human growth hormone. Okay? Peyton Manning is accused of having taken growth hormone. I'm here to say that if I were his doctor, I would have insisted on him taking human growth hormone. When you look at the law, which we'll look at carefully, and my wife Laura will do this in detail, the law does not say it's illegal to give growth hormone to someone with a disease. Broken neck, herniated disc, that counts. So he's the right to try poster boy. Now Peyton Manning is the reason why he's skating on all this is because he's a great guy. He loves playing football. He is wonderful for the NFL. If he's caught cheating, so to speak, it's bad for the NFL. Bad for business. If anybody's ever watched the game, he'll hear him say, Omaha, Omaha. And so it's a common question among the media, like, what does Omaha mean, right? And he's great. It's a wonderful clip, YouTube clip. He says, well, a lot of people ask me what Omaha means, and it can mean, it means it's a pass play. But it could be a run play, or it could be an option play. He says, depending upon the wind, or which direction we're going on the field, and the jerseys. So you got to love the guy. He's got a great sense of humor, and he's taken his team to the Super Bowl. But, of course, this is my favorite shot of Peyton Manning when Seattle beat Denver 43-8, first play of the game. This is a Peyton Manning we think about in Seattle. The ball goes over his head. Now, what if Peyton Manning did use growth hormone. This is an article which was published recently. Peyton Manning has been accused of using growth hormone during the year 2011. This is the year that he didn't play football because of injuries that forced him to be sidelined. Manning has not been found guilty of putting any illegal substance in his body, but what if he is found guilty? Will his career be tainted? If Manning is lying and he did use growth hormone during his time out of football, it might severely damage everything he did for the game of football. It would definitely be a huge blow to the NFL. Okay? Now, I'm here to say the most sensible treatment for Peyton Manning would have been growth hormone. And let's go through that a little bit. And I'm suggesting it should have been prescribed because, in my opinion, I'm not a lawyer, but in my opinion and in my lawyer's opinion, it is legal to prescribe. Peyton had herniated discs. Now, let's just talk about traumatic brain injury. If anyone's paying attention to the NFL, they're doing special helmets. They're trying to, you can hardly hit anybody in the NFL now because someone might get hurt. Traumatic brain injury, this is a serious issue. Well, what's the best and most sensible treatment for traumatic brain injury?
Don't play football.
Scratch that from the record. It's human growth hormone. And if you look at the studies, they say traumatic brain injury is a rarely reported cause of growth hormone deficiency. The role of IGF-1 growth hormone in traumatic brain injuries. The literature is full of evidence that traumatic brain injuries are associated with low growth hormone. And if you give growth hormone, it's the optimal treatment. So why is the NFL not making sure that all those poor gladiators who had 10 years maybe and now living crippled, why are they not being given growth hormone? Mark Cuban, who's the Dallas Mavericks NBA team owner, Mark Cuban is funding a study which will show what all of the doctors who've been using growth hormone for their patients for the last 30 years know. The people with the knee injuries that are in this study will heal faster and heal stronger than the ones that don't get growth hormone. The study is undergoing University of Michigan right now. Special permission from the government to do this study. Thank you, government, for letting him do this study. Mark Cuban, he says, let's do what's right to get you healthy again. Now, from his perspective, these are like thoroughbreds. He spends millions of dollars on some guy, and he twists his ankle and he's out. Let's get him in a healthy way, not with steroids to suppress the problem. Let's get him back healthy. So he's a pioneer here. HGH has been a term used with quite a negative stigma for a long time in sports, primarily due to the NFL and the Major League Baseball. It's a banned substance because it essentially has the potential to enhance the body and performance of a player in a similar way to steroids, which are also banned. By allowing HGH into the injury recovery process, it would be a big breakthrough for the medical field for professional sports, while possibly opening up a can of regulated worms. Doctors, especially doctors who've worked in what's called anti-aging medicine or integrative medicine, they know the power of growth hormone, and they're terrified to use it. You can still get it, but people are being quiet about it. Now, here's the law from the state of Washington regarding growth hormone. It is illegal to give growth hormone for the purpose of manipulating hormones to increase muscle mass, strength, or weight, or for the purpose of enhancing athletic abilities, without a medical necessity to do so. So if there is a medical necessity, it's okay, according to the state of Washington, where they prosecuted me. Here's the federal law. Prohibited distribution of human growth hormone, except as provided in paragraph 2. Whoever knowingly distributes or possesses with intent to distribute, okay, I stress that twice. Why? A doctor does 3 things. A doctor prescribes, dispenses, and administers. Doctors do not distribute. Distribution goes to clients. This law, the federal law, was not intended to target doctors, was not intended to get in the way of a doctor giving Peyton Manning the right medication. The federal law, it's illegal to give growth hormone, to distribute growth hormone for any use in humans other than the treatment of a disease. Wow. English majors here, that means you can give it for the treatment of a disease, right? Federal law. Or other recognized medical condition which have been authorized by the Secretary of Health and Human Services. What this means is it's illegal to distribute growth hormone except if you're treating a disease or another condition. For example, if your grandchild just isn't growing, the Secretary of Health and Human Services says you can give growth hormone to a kid who's too short. That's a cosmetic issue. That is not a health issue. So the law says you cannot prescribe growth hormone except if you're treating a disease or a funky condition which is not a disease but which growth hormone has been shown to help. Wasting away from AIDS is one of those things. Hepatitis C in some instances is one of those conditions. But the medical board of state of Washington said, we can't read English. So we're going to say that that or doesn't exist. We're going to say growth hormone is illegal unless you're prescribing it for the treatment of a disease which the secretary has approved. Do you see that? I could spend a long time elaborating on this because it's diagnostic of the rampant disregard for justice that the medical boards are attacking doctors with. Now, distribute, again, doctors administer, prescribe, or dispense. Distribution is non-medical. Here are the outlaws. This is a headline just recently. Gym owner accused of running steroid ring. Greco is also charged with smuggling and possessing human growth hormone with the intent to use illegally acquired growth hormone and steroids to enhance the performance of people who go to his gym. That's the guy that is targeted. Performance enhancement, not medical doctors prescribing a miraculous hormone, often called the master hormone, for patients. Another outlaw. At the same time the medical board was coming after me, there was another doctor named Marin. This is public records. And he was discovered to be giving growth hormone to his stepson. Now, this is called diversion. It's like if you're taking oxycodone and you give it to your wife. That is a felony. So this doctor wasn't keeping medical records on his stepson, wasn't having office visit with his stepson. He was just giving it to him. And it came to the attention of the medical board. What did they do? They asked him what he's doing. He said, I'm so sorry. I'm such a bad doctor. Please forgive me. They gave him a reprimand. He said, I was giving it to my poor stepson. He's too short. Well, the stepson was I think a junior in high school. He was 5'9" 3/4" and weighed 152 pounds. And the medical board gave this doctor a reprimand. So what Gaston understands is it's not about anything other than the doctors who stand up and are courageous. It becomes personal with the bureaucrats. It's an ad hominem attack. So here's a guy who's actually an outlaw. He's diverting a substance. He can't say that the stepson is his patient. There were no medical records. He gets a reprimand. I got a 3-year suspension of my license. Now, unequal protection under the law. Here's an OBGYN, February of 2015. He was slated to be the medical society president, the president of the medical society, OBGYN. What happened? Well, he was slated to become a Hobbs obstetrician and gynecologist who allegedly had sex with patients and left some giving birth unattended, is giving up the presidency of his New Mexico Medical Society. Driscoll was slated to become president in May. His resignation comes days after his medical license was conditionally restored by the state medical board. Driscoll's license was suspended in November based on evidence that he had kept patients waiting, had affairs with patients and staff, and drank on the job. The board ruled that he could practice again after completing a 2-week course on professional boundaries. Oh. All right. Medical boards violate constitutional rights. I followed the case of Steve Agnostic, who's a Oklahoma doctor, and his lawyer made a good case. You have to have a lot of money to fight these cases, right? The medical boards are an administrative process, and it's really a shakedown. Instead of spending $300,000 or $400,000 fighting it, you pay a fine, you admit guilt, you admit that you're a bad doctor, even though you're not. And then they have that axe over your head, so if you step on line again, they can say, well, you already admitted you're a bad doctor. right? This is the way the game's played. But it was clear that this board carelessly flaunted the doctor's due process rights, that the Oklahoma Medical Board should develop a fairer system when handling complaints against physicians while emphasizing constitutionally protected due process rights. So that's just one case. Now, did anybody hear about what happened in North Carolina last year where the dentists, the dental board, went after the non-dentists who were whitening teeth? It went up to the Supreme Court. Big case. And the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the non-dentists. And they said, you guys are violating the Sherman Antitrust Act because you, on the board, are profiting financially from putting these people out of business. That's a conflict of interest. So the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the non-medical/dental board people. Big case. Should change a lot of things. Okay. Now, part of my situation was they said to me, if I admit I'm a bad doctor, they'll charge me, I think it was $30,000 or $40,000, and give me a 1-month suspension. Now, I was raised to not say things that aren't true, and since I thought I was a good doctor, I didn't. And since all 5 of the patients that were being investigated, as Laura will go into, all got better after being left for dead by their cardiologists, I was enjoying my practice. There was absolutely no burnout. But I didn't want to admit I was a bad doctor, pay a fine, and get a 1-month suspension. My attorney said, if that's their offer, when they come back after an arbitration, it'll be less. They came back with a 36-fold increase in the penalty, a 3-year suspension, because I asserted my constitutional right for due process. You know, they have their manner. Now, then they imposed a 1-year fellowship. In order to get my license back after 3 years, I had to complete a 1-year fellowship or residency equivalent. Well, I like education. Let's check it out. Dear Dr. Weeks, we regret that we are not able to offer you a position in our fellowship program since part of the requirements is that the candidate has an active and unrestricted license. That's a catch-22. Okay? So the concept that you have to understand is that we are a nation under law at our best. Administrative law is not law. Due process is not part of it. Rules of evidence are not part of it. It is an administrative process. In fact, it's described by a law professor at Georgetown, I believe, in his article. He says it's administrative power and ought not be called administrative law. The solution is not a legal solution. It's actually more like what Gaston said, is calling out the administrators, these faceless bureaucrats who operate in the dark and are never challenged. Now, the conclusions are that medical boards are bureaucratic agencies which operate in blatant disregard of the law. Classically, a medical doctor will be accused of doing something beyond the standard of care, even if the patients are helped. He'll appeal it, he'll go through his administrative process, and he'll lose because the administrative board is judge, jury, and executioner. They're the ones who decide that there should be an investigation. They're the ones that look at the evidence and discard other evidence. They're the ones who stand as judge, and they're the ones who determine the penalty. It's not a legal process. That's a very important issue, and the question is, what about the separation of powers, which is a constitutionally mandated principle, but ever since FDR was the president and set up administrative processes, all administrative processes are unconstitutional because they separate powers. That's it. Speak with Vicki later. She understands that. Administrative agencies should not be allowed more leeway to increase their often unreviewable power. Okay, now, so Americans deserve the right to try. They deserve the right to try despite Child Protective Services saying, if you don't do this, we're going to take your child. Despite federal and state prosecutors taking administrative procedure and bankrupting doctors who try to fight. Despite the Federation of State Medical Boards, which my wife Laura will talk about, and the medical boards, despite politicians and despite judges. Now, this is a, you remember the doctor with all his Merck emblems on him? Here's a little boy talking to a guy with Mobile, FedEx, PS, STP, and he says, no, I'm not a NASCAR driver, I'm a U.S. Senator. So we do have a problem in our elections of senators and congressmen and such. Now here's a fellow who's recognizable, once a Monsanto attorney, currently a Supreme Court justice, In every instance where Monsanto was involved, he voted for Monsanto. So we can't trust our judges necessarily. Now, this is a picture of what archaeologists believe was the first politician. And if you're not up front, you're missing the joke. Can anybody see this? Head up butt. Now, again, but say what you want about politicians. I believe with Gaston that there's a percentage who are really intending evil. There's a percentage who are idealistic and highly well-intended, and the great majority are afraid. They're afraid they'll lose their funding. So I believe we have to call out the best in people. Now, this is a slide which I'm dedicated to Danny. I used to have to study Latin, which I'm very grateful I had to study Latin. Can anybody read Latin? So this is duc suquere aut ex via descendere valle lacter. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. All right. And then lastly, Linus Pauling. Like Brian Peskin, who was an engineer, Linus Pauling, a 2-time Nobel laureate, had the arrogance to suggest that vitamin C might be helpful for you. Wrote many books. Doctors were furious with him. How dare you, not a doctor, tell our patients what's good for them? So Linus Pauling did a study on vitamin C in cancer, and he showed great results with people with terminal cancer, with vitamin C, intravenously and orally. Science is nothing but methodology. So immediately after that study, a very prominent, well-funded doctor repeated the study and concluded that vitamin C didn't help patients. What did he do? He gave patients oral vitamin C. Did he give them intravenous vitamin C? No. Did he repeat the study? No. Front page, New England Journal of Medicine, Linus Pauling's a quack, and so forth. We replicated the study. They didn't replicate the study. Pauling did IV and oral vitamin C, showed great results. The study which refuted Pauling did just oral. That's not science. That's fraud. That's quackery. So I love Linus Pauling and what he's done, and this is one of his quotes. Again, Danny, for you. Do unto others 20% better than you would expect them to do unto you, to correct for subjective error. So thank you for your time, and sorry that we didn't have it more projected. Any questions? Yeah.
I just wanted to go back to the seeds, even though the second part is so my heart. I did look into all kinds of seed therapy and stuff like that for both my mother and my father. And there is a lot of scuttlebutt out there that says, you know, you cross some magic line with husks and seeds and you're going to poison your body and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
So the question is, if you're eating seeds, can you get in trouble? Yes. Poison is always a question of dosage, right? Poison itself is not poison. It's a dosage issue. Too many. In fact, Laura will chuckle at this, but I got so excited about 3 years ago on seeds. I thought, eat like a bird, soar like an eagle. I ate nothing but seeds, right? After about a week, I was so constipated, I almost died. So moderation, but all seeds, like the Shakespeare quote, in the rind of that small flower is medicine and power. But there's also toxins there. Yeah. But the same with anything. There are phytates in kale, which too much of that can get you in trouble. I mean, it's a question of dosage.
Do you have that on your website or anything?
Yep.
So that you can
There's a lot of information about that, yeah.
cross that line or-
Well, no, because it's a question of dosage, and we have biochemical individuality. But what you should take away from this, I hope, is that in the seed is the most nutrient-dense food on earth. It has to be organic, because all living substances sequester toxins in fat tissue. That's why if someone's obese and they lose weight, they feel terrible for a while, because all those stored toxins are being released into the blood. So if you forget the organic part and just go get seeds which are pesticided, you're going to be hurting yourself. It's got to be organic, non-GMO. And then, practically speaking, we haven't run into problems with dosages. Even the apricot pit, amygdalina, people are eating 10 and 15 and 20 of those a day. So there are some arsenic-like and cyanide-like components in seeds. And you know what? That's interesting. Why? I think nature doesn't want us to eat the seed. I think nature wants us to eat the apple, walk 100 yards, deposit the seeds in a nice fertile little plant location, fertilize. it's antithetical to the health of a plant if we eat its seed. So I think nature, God, puts a little arsenic in there to discourage people from eating the seed. But practically speaking, you can eat the seed, and if you eat the whole seed, you get the husks. So please don't go to Amazon and buy organic extracted seed oils. You'll miss the husk. Grind your seeds or buy the seeds with the husks ground up. We've been working with these products for about 3 years. We've seen nothing but miraculous benefits, no toxic issues. But it's possible if you take, some magic seed from Borneo or something, Yep.
So your liquid form.
Hold on just one second.
Going back to chemotherapy,
Yep.
how the hell do you get big pharma out of this game when there's so much money to take?
Well, the question is, how do you get big pharma out of the game? And that's what's tragic. That's what we have to come back to right to try. So here's a 5-year-old kid with a cancer, and big pharma and the whole machinery comes down on the parents and say, if you don't give your kid chemo and radiation, we're going to take them away. So parents flee the state. Now they're felons. Now they're kidnappers. I mean, this is a political problem, and it's only because, as Gaston points out, the 90% of us aren't saying anything. There's petitions to sign. There's political action. But the good news is, according to Max Wicha, chemotherapy and radiation will no longer be given in his lifetime. We're moving away from that. If you look at weeksmd.com and type in chemotherapy, you'll see all the stuff about cancer stem cells and all the stuff about chemo and radiation. But the fact is, if I kick Danny in the shin, we are fearfully and wonderfully made, such that if I break her shin bone tissue sends out an SOS message that says, hey, I'm injured tissue. Are there any nice stem cells in the area, friendly stem cells, willing to migrate to me and become shin bone? That's how we heal. That's what the stem cells are doing. We all have stem cells. So when I kick Danny in the shin and break her shin bone, as the stem cells are coming, they're asking the shin bone, by the way, what do you want we stem cells to become? It could be a pancreas, it could be a gallbladder, and Danny's shin bone says, I would like you stem cells to become shin bones. This is miraculous how we heal. The stem cells come and they become the injured tissue. Now, if Vicky had a breast cancer, and I were a great oncologist that could give chemo and radiation right to that breast tumor, what does her breast tumor do, which is her tissue? It's confused. It's cellular ADHD. It's still Vicky. Her breast cancer tumor says, ouch, I'm injured tissue. And it sends out an SOS message. Are there any stem cells in the area willing to come and help? That's what stem cells do. Here we come. By the way, what are you? I'm adenocarcinoma of the breast. Can you become me? Stem cells say, sure, we can become that. Do you see how chemo and radiation, by injuring tissue, make cancer stem cells more numerous and more virulent? They're attracted to the area, and they become the tumor. They become the cancer stem cells. That's why you have to interrupt that SOS message. For extra credit in Gaston's Academy, what is that message? The message that is interleukin 6 and interleukin 8, which the injured tissue sends out, is an inflammatory cytokine. Shut down the inflammation, you shut down the recruitment of stem cells, which will be converted to the dark side. You stop that process. You stop the conversion of stem cells to cancer stem cells with anti-inflammatories. Yep.
Listing doctor, he uses duck stem cells. And would like a duck stem cell go in and attack the cancer stem cells?
No. Duck stem cells will not attack cancer stem cells. If you put duck stem cells into the entity and radiate his prostate, they will become prostate cancer stem cells. See, the stem cell gets recruited to the dark side. It's coming to help. It thinks it might be a broken shin, maybe a gastric ulcer, maybe a cut on your hand. That's mobilization of stem cells, which heals us when we get injured. And if we damage our cancer tumor cells, the tumor cells, being us, will recruit stem cells to become more cancer. Stop the chemo and radiation. Ask your oncologist, what are your treatments going to do to my cancer stem cells? And in the pause, you can go get a cup of tea and come back, and you still won't have an answer, because the answer is it's going to make your cancer cells more numerous, and more virulent. Yep. How does HGH affect stem cells? Is that what you said? Well, I don't know the answer to that. Thank you for the question. And as my good friend and teacher Otto Wolf would say in a moment like this, I don't know the answer to that. And in fact, if memory serves me right, I don't believe I've ever lectured on that topic. But I could think in general that the human growth hormone is called growth hormone because it was first used on pituitary dwarfs, kids who had damaged brains, and their pituitary wasn't working, wasn't secreting what we call growth hormone, or the master hormone. And it's only called growth hormone because it took those little kids and it let them grow. If you had a bad thyroid, autoimmune thyroiditis, or if you had osteoporosis, growth hormone helps your body heal those issues, one of the best agents for it. It could also be called thyroid enhancing hormone or stopping the bone loss hormone. It just happens to be called growth hormone because that's how it was at first used, but it's considered the master hormone. It helps everything function better.
Even, years ago when HGH started becoming popular, there was a thing going around about how if you've ever had cancer, you should not.
This is exactly the question. And by the way, my license was taken away not because I injured any patient, not because any patient complained, but because a Stanford endocrinologist who'd never worked with growth hormone in adults was a pediatric endocrinologist. That was the only person they could find to come against me. He said, I'm a theoretical risk of harm. Can you imagine a doctor's license being taken away for 3 years because he's a theoretical risk of harm? That's how much they hated me.
Yeah.
Now, but it stands to logic. If little things grow with growth hormone, maybe a little tumor would grow with growth hormone. That's a good question. And it's been thoroughly addressed in the scientific literature. It has never been shown to increase cancer in any way. They've looked at cohorts of kids who were first given the growth hormone to grow, no higher incidence of cancer. So the endocrine societies, in addressing this issue, call the risk of growth hormone inducing cancer in any form a theoretical and not an actual risk. And that's how I got the label that I was a theoretical risk to my patients. Yeah. So many of the doctors using growth hormone will give it to patients who have cancer. Many of the doctors giving growth hormone to the patients give it to themselves when they have cancer. Thank you for that question. All right. Yes. Yes. So this product, Sol, in the back, you drink 90% of it, and you could rub 10% on a sore knee, a sore back. The seed oil penetrates with anti-inflammatory oils. We have many instances of people whose pain goes away within a couple minutes. So I'm thinking, that's not very nice. That's suppressing the symptom. The symptom's there to give the message, don't walk on me, I'm hurt. How are we helping the knee, if it's hurting and saying, don't walk on me, by giving an anti-inflammatory and letting people walk on it? And the answer is, what's in the seed? Genetic spare parts, DNA and RNA, and restorative, reparative forces. You have a lot of seed oils, which it's over 50% of the product is seed oils. These seed oils penetrate with anti-inflammatory benefits and they correct problems. They don't suppress symptoms. But inflammation, to take your point a little further, is wonderful. We need a certain amount of inflammation. We need a certain amount of enthusiasm. If you had parasites, primarily parasites are addressed by inflammation. That's our body's natural defense. So this is a great question, and I appreciate it because I should have said the problem is chronic excessive inflammation. Just the way a fever is therapeutic for a child. They'll feel better. We never say after the kid has a fever, Billy had a fever and now he's feeling like he felt before. No, Billy's had a fever and now he feels better. Because a fever is a therapeutic gesture. All symptoms are therapeutic gestures. That's the principle of homeopathy. You need to mimic the symptom. But too much of a fever will give you a Helen Keller. Too many of the wrong seeds will give you some problems. So that's where there has to be informed, educated process. But I should have been very clear, and I appreciate the clarity that you suggest, is that I'm not against inflammation. I'm against chronic excessive inflammation induced by electrical pollution, toxins in our environment. I mean, we're living in an inflamed state because of our environment that we've allowed. I'm going to say, so there's some samples in the back. Please help yourself to some sole, rip it and sip it. If anybody has a sore this or that, we can show you how to rub it on your bad knee or your bad back. But I think we now have lunch now, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you for your attention.